In this video, we will have a little fun with some malware. If you'd like to get some viruses, well, not get, obtain, no, not obtain. I don't know, what's a good word? If you'd like to not download. Anyway, here's a repository of viruses. There is source code, there is stuff you can download, and you can study it. You can infect your computer, not recommended. You could create a separate virtual machine and infect that, which would be very interesting to do. Or you could just browse the code. There's a lot to learn here. It's in a safe environment because it's online, and if you look at the source code, it will not attack you. If you download it and mess around with it enough, you may get yourself in trouble. Not recommended. This is the one I'm going to play with. This was sent to me a few years ago. I received it as an email attachment from someone who cared about me a lot, I'm sure. They were concerned about my well-being and they wanted me to know the dangers of viruses. I had Outlook as my email client and it didn't do a very good job of detecting viruses in attachments. I realized pretty early on that this was a bad deal, so I just downloaded it. I didn't execute it. In order to protect myself, I put it into a zip file, and then another zip file, and then renamed the zip file so I couldn't accidentally unzip it. You can see the name is pretty descriptive. So I don't think I'm in any danger. I have used this in other classes to illustrate how to deal with viruses. If you'd like a copy, I'll send it to you. We'd have to figure out a way to do that because most clients these days will detect these kind of things. But anyway, it's just something for us to play with and learn about how malware might work and how we might deal with it a little better. The first thing I tried to do with it is send it to myself because I was curious. This particular virus, is it something Google recognizes? And I was pleased to find out that I could not add it as an attachment to a Gmail message. As soon as I tried to attach it, Google flagged it, and if I click send, it refuses to send that message with that virus-laden attachment. So that's a good deal. That doesn't mean Google will catch all viruses, but at least this one, it did. And then I thought to myself, I'd like to know more about this file. So what else can I do? And I know I could run it against my installed local virus checker, but that's kind of boring. I went ahead and decided that I would send it to some of the online free virus testers. There are plenty of sites you can go to, and they will let you upload a file and they will tell you if they think it is infected with anything. Not a perfect solution, but it's a start and it's a good learning exercise. And I started with online virus checker called VirusTotal. I'm going to say for the purposes of this discussion, I don't know anything about it. I don't know if it's any good. I don't know how long it's been around. I don't even know if it's real. And I hope you take the same approach. Just because you find something through a Google search doesn't mean it's legitimate. It's a place to start. And I made a little video of my attempt to upload this file to VirusTotal. It's very simple. It's a drag and drop, and you can see I dragged the file from my Windows Explorer folder. VirusTotal takes about a half a second to realize that this file has a boatload of possible problems. And this is a useful site because, assuming it's real, because it subjects the file to numerous virus detection engines, some of which I recognize, some of which I don't. I see Kaspersky, I see McAfee, I see Microsoft, and I see that it found in 35 of 57 engines a potential problem. And as you get more into malware, you will learn that a problem, a virus, a worm, goes by different names depending on who finds it, how it's categorized, and what engine you use to process that file. So the same logic, the same virus, the same worm gets a different name in different antivirus engines. That makes it more confusing, but that's more work for us, and that keeps us employed. So what do I draw from this? Well, assuming this site is legit, 35 different antivirus engines thinks there's something wrong with it. That leads me to believe I probably shouldn't mess with it. I probably shouldn't open it, probably shouldn't distribute it, because I think that a majority of these supposedly reputable services tell me to stay away from it. So I'm starting to feel like, hey, there's a problem here, and I probably don't want to install this program on any of my computers at work or at home. It's just running through the video again. It was fun to watch, so we'll watch it twice. Okay, the next thing I did was I want to find out if a file that cannot possibly be a virus causes a false positive through this virus checker. Because again, I'm suspicious of virustotal.com. And since I've never heard of it, I'm just curious and I like to experiment. So I created a notepad file with just some text in it. I renamed it .exe, which doesn't accomplish anything because you still can't make it executable simply by changing the name of it. And I submitted that to the online virus checker, and good enough, it came back and said, hey, there are no problems with this file. It could have told me it was misnamed, but that's fine. So I get a little bit more confidence in this website because it's not just telling me randomly that things have viruses in them. That builds a little bit of confidence on my end. And then I thought to myself, what if I wrote my own virus and then I will submit that to the online virus checker just out of curiosity to see what it does. I went online and I typed in, I'll show you. I typed in C#, format my hard drive, and I got several hits. The first hit is a site called Code Project, which I've used before and I have some level of trust in. Published in 2010, 10 years old, is a little snippet of code in C# that formats my drive. It's written in a pretty structured way. I can give it a drive letter and I can ask it to format. So I copied that code and I made a Visual Studio project. This is a simple console application. It has a main with nothing in it, and I want you to notice that I'm not invoking this code that I copied from the Code Project site. I have logic that will format a hard drive, but I am not running that logic. Now that's not really important to the virus signature detection logic. As long as the logic is in there to format a drive, the antivirus engine ideally should catch that and tell me that, hey, this program could have some malicious intent because it formats a hard drive. If you look at this line of code right here, a decent antivirus engine should be able to recognize that line of code and then make some kind of decision as to whether or not the program is malicious. Now, of course, if this was a utility that was programmed with the intent of formatting drives, then that's certainly not a virus, because that's what it was designed to do. There's always a gray area there. The next thing I did after building this little project was to build the solution. And if you've used Visual Studio before, you recognize that compiles the code and creates an executable program, if possible. In this case, it is possible. I click Build. That does not run the program. I don't need to run it, I just need to build it. And then I get, you can see right there, format your hard drive .exe. That's an executable program that I could conceivably run by double clicking on it. Okay, I can launch it from Windows Explorer, no problem. I don't really want to launch it though. I don't want to format my hard drive or even try to run the program. But I do want to know if the online virus checker has any interest in what I just did. So I submitted that executable file that I built in Visual Studio to the online virus checker. And I was somewhat disappointed because only one of the 72 virus search engines, virus identification engines, detected any kind of problem at all. And this is as far as I could get, because I couldn't find anything on Secure Age Apex except for some mentions in some marketing literature and some technical literature, but I couldn't find a separate instance of that engine anywhere that I could use individually. And the only thing the engine found, if you look at the slide, is that it flagged malicious behavior. It doesn't tell me what that is or what to do about it, and it doesn't tell me what kind of malicious behavior. So I think my conclusion is that the Secure Age Apex antivirus search engine, virus search engine, whatever, found that call to the format logic and flagged that as malicious. And I think malicious is kind of a gray area between really, really bad and harmless. So they're hedging a little bit and they're saying, hey, there might be a problem here because we found some logic that might do a bad thing to your drive. On the other hand, you might expect this program to do that kind of thing to your drive because that's why you obtained the program. So we're in a gray area there, and we, to solve that problem, to stay on the fence, they just flag it as malicious. I am disappointed though in that out of the 72 search engines that it's submitted to, it only one of them gave a hit back. So my little format your hard drive.exe seemed to slip by the virus scanners. I also tried it on some other online virus scanners. Here's FortiGuard Labs, and it told me there was no problem at all. As you can see in the slide, it came back green, appears to be clean. Notice the wording they use, appears to be clean, because no virus scanner is perfect. Here's another one. And again, as I go through these, I don't know anything about these. I just found these online, and I can't tell you whether or not they appear to be legit, but I can't tell you whether they are. This one submitted my file to 38 different antivirus checkers and found no problems. This one submitted it to multiple antivirus checkers and found no problem. Kaspersky, we've all heard of them. They found no problem. No threats detected. And then I thought, okay, let's try something different. We've proved we can kind of skate by using this formatting logic. Let's try keylogging, because keylogging is a popular feature of malware. The hackers want to know what keys you're pressing to steal your password and your login credentials and all kinds of other neat things. And so people write keyloggers. So I did the same thing. I went to Google. I searched for keyloggers in C#. I found another code project site, and I downloaded some keylogging software. Now, the keylogging software project that I built in Visual Studio flagged 25 different virus scanners, which is a pretty good number and leads me to believe that since there's so many, then they all found something, which makes me feel a little bit better. I am able to write a keylogging application. Actually, I just copied and pasted it anyway. And I am able to submit it to a scanner, and the scanner thinks that, hey, it's a keylogger. But notice the different behaviors that are listed. These different virus scanners classify this thing in all kinds of different ways, even though it's just a simple keylogger. One thinks it's a Trojan, one thinks it's riskware, one thinks it's suspicious, Cyber Reason thinks it's malicious. Archibit thinks it's a Trojan. I don't know how it's a Trojan. It's just a keylogger. It's not hiding anywhere. So we see that it's very easy to write or copy and paste and create a project from available code online that creates something that triggers the virus scanners. The next thing I did was modify my keylogger slightly such that it does not run the keylogger software. It simply returns. This is the same logic I had before, but instead of tripping through the logic in the code, I just skip over it. So the logic is there, and as a programmer, I will tell you that because I don't go down a code path doesn't mean I won't eventually go down that code path under some other circumstances. So people who program viruses are very, very tricky, and they will find a way to get that code executed in some sideways or backdoor fashion. But here I'm just illustrating, look, here's a bunch of code that behaves like a keylogger, but I'm not executing that code. All right, I built a Visual Studio project out of that, submitted that to my virus scanner, and look, I got 20 hits. So it's got the keylogger logic in it, but it is not running the keylogger logic. This builds a high level of confidence in these virus scanners to detect things that might not even run, which is kind of neat because I may not think it's running, but the person who programs a really devious piece of malware might find a way to get that code to run, even though it's not obvious to the rest of us. So simply skipping over the logic by adding a return statement, I still triggered 20 different virus scanners. The next thing I was interested in was the concept of a false positive, because sometimes we will submit a program to a virus scanner, a malware scanner, and it will come back positive, but it's really not malware. And we've touched on this already in this presentation because sometimes it's a gray area. Okay, that program is intended to format the hard drive, or that program is intended to log keystrokes, or that program is intended to save your password in a database. It's not malicious, but it could be construed as malicious behavior in the wrong context. So here is a situation I found online where a seemingly legitimate application from a company called Soft Perfect, it must be good because they're perfect, their product is triggering false positives in malware scanners. So they had to add an entry to their knowledge base explaining that, hey, we know this is going on, but it's not our fault. Our code is fine. Our code isn't malicious. And these virus scanners are just overreacting. And that's what we call a false positive. Which would you rather have? A false positive, in other words, a virus scanner that's too sensitive, or a false negative, meaning that there was some malware in a file, but your virus scanner missed it because it wasn't sensitive enough. In a perfect world, we would have no false positives and no false negatives, but we do not live in that perfect world. Thank you.